All right. Hello, everybody. It's episode 5 of our revenue architecture webinar series together with Winning by Design. Today, we have the pleasure to have the first actually European guest from Winning by Design, because the first 4 guests were from the US. We've had Jaco several times, and we had also Beth, revenue architect from Winning by Design. Today, we have the pleasure to welcome Jeremy in the episode. Jeremy is a managing director, as I said, part of the European division of the company. We're going to be discussing the recurring revenue trends that we are seeing in Europe, and not only in Europe. In the next 30 minutes, we're going to be discussing things around artificial intelligence in go-to-market, of course, how the trends from growth to profitability have shifted over the past few years, and several more topics. So I would say stay tuned to hear what we are going to say. And hi, Jeremy. It's a real pleasure to have you here.
Hi, yeah, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this.
Great. Yeah, really. Me too. Super excited. Maybe you can start with a short introduction of what your role is at Winning by Design, what you've been up to recently, and we can then dive deeper into our topic of trends.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I guess my case of how I got to Winning by Design is kind of unique, but then again, it isn't. I was actually the first European customer of Winning by Design a very long time ago. And about 4.5 years ago, some of the people over at Winning by Design thought it was a good idea to bring me on due to our expansion. The rapid growth of Winning by Design led to me jump on board, and I haven't regret that a single second. Had various roles here over at Winning by Design: analyst, revenue architect, and since a year and a half, I'm the managing director for the European time zone. Which ultimately means that I deal with our prospects and our customers, make sure that as we call that in our world, get to impact and make sure that they keep on coming back for more impact. So high level, that's my role at Winning by Design.
Right, and I guess given the fact that you're constantly speaking with a lot of customers, a lot of leaders in SaaS, in the recurring revenue industry, I guess you're the best person to talk about trends and what you're seeing, especially in the European market, as both of us are operating primarily in Europe. So maybe let's start with one broader question. If I would ask you about the top trends that you are seeing, that you've been seeing in the past months and maybe year, what would you point out? What would you start with?
Yeah. I guess there's a couple of things that, particularly in the last 6 months, have become very topical. I think the first thing you mentioned already is artificial intelligence. I think there's a lot of people unsure about how this is going to fit into go-to-market. Luckily, I guess that's in the nature of the kind of people that we are working in tech. A lot of people are very excited about it. Some people are concerned about it. And the second thing that I would point out is probably around a mindset shift that we're seeing across leaders. And the mindset shift that I leaning towards to call out here is that of growth of all costs versus sustainable growth. I think in that sense, the whole revenue architecture and the lean revenue factory concept are probably here at the right time. But yeah, I see a lot of leaders concerned about, how am I going to build out my business now that I'm getting less resources and expectations that remain the same, right? And that's probably the second thing that I point out.
Right, and those are maybe going to be the main topics that we are going to touch upon in the next few minutes. And to some degree, I would say maybe they are interconnected, because in order to bring this mindset around efficiency and that ultimately would lead to profitability, maybe AI has some place in that. Some people say it has, other people say everybody's adopting AI, so it's hard really to trust AI, or it's not enough to just work with AI in order to become efficient. But let's start with the AI topic right now. First of all, last year when OpenAI published their first product, and it became very popular in the audience, the first few months were more around the hype of AI, right? But a lot of tools appeared, primarily, like, of course, in every field of business, but in go-to-market, we have really an influx of many tools, especially in the left part of the bow tie, where it's the acquisition and closing the deals. What would you say, first of all, in which part of the AI journey are we right now? I mean, the SaaS industry in general. Is it still this hype, or are we now moving towards very specific use cases where we really see some results that are moving the needle in SaaS?
Right. And sorry to correct you, but it's been almost 2 years. It's
2 years. 2 years, correct.
Well over a year and a half now.
Time flies by. All right.
Yeah, no, but yeah, I also thought it was last year, but it's actually been it was in 2022. No, but I think your question is valid, right? And I think where the domains where I see artificial intelligence becoming increasingly more relevant is onefold. I see it at the job of the SDR. And secondly, I see the job of a manager seriously benefiting from artificial intelligence. So, and allow me to elaborate on what I mean with those two roles. No, I think the reality is that there's very little people that want to be a lifelong SDR, right? So I think we all, as SDRs, want to become a account executive, a customer success rep, a marketeer, whatever. We often use that role as an SDR, as an entry-level job into an organization. It allows us to become familiar with the company, with the soft skills and the hard skills required in order to be successful in a start or scale up, etc., etc. But the reality is that the job of an SDR over the last couple of years has really been something that added to the overall cost, the cost of acquisition. And the role of an SDR is ultimately, I believe, necessary in very little organizations. So where I believe generative AI will play a very important role is making the number of SDRs required in order for us to be able to generate the right amount of pipeline. It will make the number of SDRs significantly lower. So I don't believe that the role of an SDR will become obsolete, which I've read, and I do not believe. I still think there's a place for SDRs in certain organizations. I also do believe that for the purpose of it being an entry job into an organization, I think it's still very relevant. But I do think that generative AI is going to be able to take over 20, 30, 40% of the job that an SDR does today. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we will in the next 6 to 9 months. And that will result in companies needing less SDRs to get the same output.
Right. What I'm seeing on the markets, maybe you would agree with me, there is a new role. I think this role doesn't have a very specific name yet. That's the person who understands very well, on the one hand, the piece with prompt engineering. On the other hand, is very good with data and those tools around generative AI. And it's really the person who is setting up those workflows that can produce good output when it comes to messaging and the whole process of reaching out to prospects, right? And this role, they are saying, is the new, like, it's the role that right now is growing in popularity in this SDR space.
Yeah, no, 100%. And I think, another thing that we will see there, which, I just heard the other day that a good SDR in California makes about $105,000 per year on target.
Right.
And I think that's worrying, right? Because we're typically a couple of years behind. So in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, that might be, if that trend continues, what we need to start paying for an SDR. And I believe that's absolutely ridiculous, of course. And I believe where AI is also going to play an important role is in helping companies to be able to hire only the best talent out there, right? And I think one of the growth of all costs symptoms that a lot of organizations have struggled with is in order to be able to keep up the growth expectations, hiring a lot of mediocre talent because the best talent was either you couldn't afford it, or it was simply unavailable. It wasn't on the market, right? And I also believe that there will be less SDRs required, potentially in time, less account executives required to do the same job, which is going to allow the quality of the SDRs and the account executives that people have in their organization to increase.
Right. And what about the marketing piece of the business that's also related to generating demand and generating new leads? I think we are seeing a similar trend there. Of course, there are many tools, many like technologies in general that are trying to, do great things in content generation, and not only. Where do you think we are there?
I find that difficult to answer, because I think the reality is that we are still in very, very early stages. I think that ChatGPT in its latest version is still not able to create content. It is able to use our input in order to rewrite but to truly build content that ChatGPT is still unable to do. I recently asked ChatGPT to write a book for me, and it is impossible for ChatGPT to do that. To write a 2-pager, it is impossible. It's going to need our input, right? And it will be able to use the right words, etc., etc. But to create content today, there's very little tools out there that can do that based on generative AI.
Right, and the ones that really make it, and really produce high quality content are going to be the real innovators in this space.
That will be absolutely, yes.
Exactly, message tools will appear. But still, the thing is, many people say it, and we see it, especially for smaller companies, but not only for smaller companies. Still, AI, even the content generation piece, can help you get like 60% there. Yes, it's using your input, very likely to use your input, but still, if it's let's say a company that doesn't have so much of resource right now, at least you can use it for the first part of the work, right, and speed up the process in general.
And I think quality-wise, it helps. And to come back to the second point that I was making in terms of frontline managers, I think frontline managers are often being tasked with so many responsibilities. And, at the end of the day, there's only one thing that counts, and that's the output, right? So as a result, what we often see is that organizations struggle to have a true coaching culture in their organization, because frontline managers simply can't prioritize it. And of course, there's, on a more technical level, there are ways that you as a frontline manager do not need to be the person that initiate the frontline coaching. But the reality is that frontline managers struggle to end up giving the coaching that their reps require, because let's not forget that most SaaS companies work with very junior people that have only been working for 2, 3, 4 years, that have never sold a 100K contract or a 500K contract. And I think that's where generative AI can play an incredible role for frontline managers, is helping them to pinpoint where the reps are struggling, what good looks like, and then feed that back as feedback into the organization. And I've seen great things. We use, within Winning by Design, we use Gong. I'm a big advocate for Gong. I think what they are managing to do today already with generative AI as it relates to coaching, I think is fantastic. And I think that's just barely scratching the surface of what we're going to see in that domain.
No, I can't agree more here. Definitely. And there is something else here, maybe that I would like to mention. We touched on this also with Jaco when he was a guest in the webinar series. The piece that when it comes to artificial intelligence and integrating it into the organization, on the one hand, you have those tools that you can integrate very easily into your organization, and they can immediately start giving you some outputs just by giving some prompts. But then if you would like to get those contextual insights that are also connected to how a manager, like whether a manager can get good AI insights, you also need to, first of all, invest a lot in your data infrastructure, right? And in making sure your data models are in good shape so that you really get those insights through the AI tools. So on the one hand, you can get a lot of like low-hanging fruits from artificial intelligence, but on the other hand, there is still a lot that you need to do, like when it comes to investments in data, in order for you to get all the benefits from artificial intelligence.
Yeah, 100%. And I think also ultimately there, AI will come and help us out, right? I think data hygiene has always been an incredible struggle for people in your domain, for RevOps, for leadership. And also there, the reality is that hygiene, unfortunately, is not top of mind of a CRO or a VP sales. And what I'm seeing, I see great things out there. We use Sybil at Winning by Design. Sybil just listens into our conversations and then populate spice into our CRM. And I have to say, it is pretty good what happens, what I see there. And to give you an idea how I use it as a seller for Winning by Design, because part of my job is very much selling Winning by Design to our customers here in Europe. My conversations, we record the conversations. They go to Gong. I then use the transcript in order for generative AI to feed me back, what are the top themes that we discuss, and I then use that back in my proposal, et cetera, and I get great responses. Right? People are always mesmerized how good I was able to use their own words back to them. And reality is that I do very little of that. As a matter of fact, I'm very bad with remembering these things, and that's where generative AI will come in. So also generative AI will help us increase data quality, data hygiene.
Right. As I see, we are getting ahead with time, and we have also other topics to discuss. But just one more question around artificial intelligence before going to the other one. Do you think there is any area, specifically in the SaaS space and maybe in the go-to-market space, where there is where we're not talking about so much that AI can help, where there is like untapped potential? Let's put it this way. And maybe I can. Yeah, okay. You can start, and I can give you my thoughts on that as well.
We at Winning by Design, we say that recurring revenue is the result of recurring impact, right? Yes. So that means as long as we deliver on the impact that we promise to deliver on, they will come back. They will come back for more potentially, right? If we overachieve the expectations. And the other day, I was speaking with a customer that has hundreds, if not thousands, of conversations with existing customers in their database. And I asked him, right, what are the top 3 pains that your solution is selling or solving? Excuse me. And he was unable to articulate that, right? What is it? What are the top 3 impacts? What are the top 3 critical events that you're encountering in your sales cycle? He was unable to articulate that. I think that if we use artificial intelligence correctly at post-sales, at marketing, etc., we're going to be able to create an incredible amount of very interesting data points that we can then use in our customer success conversations, in our marketing content. But we need to be smart about it, right? And the tip that I gave that person was, ask every customer success team member at the end of the conversation to ask, what is the top one impact that our solution is bringing you, right? And if everybody asks that exact same question, then you, in a matter of months, you have incredible amount of data points. Imagine what you can do with that data. So I think we need to become smarter about how we use artificial intelligence in our go-to-market.
Right. No, agree 100%. I don't have any stats. It's primarily observations that I have on that. But I think when it comes to the acquisition part of the engine, we have much more tools there compared to the tools that we have and that exist in the post-sales part, which is the customer success, account management, and so much, which very much connects to what you're saying around recurring revenues.
It must be terrible being a CS or an account manager leader out there nowadays, because I always feel like it's an afterthought, which is crazy, because what many companies don't realize is that once you hit that 50, 60, 70 million ARR threshold, your business is going to rely significantly more on that customer success team than it is on your new business team. And companies don't realize this. And what they then often end up doing, if they reach that point, is they make their sellers account managers. But that's A, not what they like, and B, not what they're good at. So I 100% agree with you. I feel like customer success, account management, post-sales is always an afterthought.
Right. And maybe we're slowly transitioning to the other thing that you mentioned at the beginning when I asked you about trends, about the mindset shifts, because I think investing more in customer success is starting to become a trend, although we are at the very beginning of that, but still more and more people are starting, I feel, to be talking about that. And my first question on that is, first of all, do you see this becoming a trend? Or maybe not yet, given the fact that we are right now in this era of profitability when it comes to growing existing customers, usually costs are lower. How do you see in general this?
No, I think you're spot on. I think what has become painfully clear over the last year to 2 years is that if money is free, it is a lot easier spent than when it is so expensive as it is today, right? And I think what we've seen the last 2 years is that sales cycles have become longer, win rates have decreased rapidly, and it's become much easier to grow revenue based on existing customers than on acquiring new customers, right? So I think you are spot on. And I hope, and I personally spend a lot of time creating that awareness in the market, I hope that this is not temporary. I hope this is not a trend, but I hope that we will start to understand that, like I said, if we are a recurring revenue business, we need to ensure that our customer continues to receive the impact that it expects from us. Because sooner or later, and especially if money is tight, these customers will churn, right? And re-winning a existing or a previous customer, a churned customer, is even more difficult than a new one.
And when it comes to really businesses applying this knowledge and investing more in the post-sales part of the business, how do you see that? For example, if we compare, because like you're meeting a lot with SaaS leaders, go-to-market leaders, what's your observation? For example, if you need to compare investments in artificial intelligence and the realization of the leaders around, the investments they need to make in artificial intelligence versus where else they can invest in order to be more efficient, where do you see really those leaders being most aware right now?
The trend that I'm seeing there is something that we have been saying for the last 2 to 3 years, is finally we see people understanding that by investing time and resources into upskilling the frontline reps, by making sure that they are working against the right processes based on best practices, you can actually increase the output without hiring additional resources. But unfortunately, it is born out of necessity. It is born out of the fact that they cannot hire an unlimited amount of people anymore. And of course, I'm exaggerating here a little bit because it was, of course, never unlimited, but money was always there in order to hire additional resources, especially if you could prove that on the output side, you would be able to deliver, right? But that's not the right way to scale a business, right? That is a very unsustainable way to scale your business because, like happened 2 years ago or a year and a half ago, if the interest rates keep increasing and on a geopolitical level, uncertainty is arising, then people will stop spending and therefore there's no funding available anymore. And we have said that 2-3 years ago, and luckily now we start seeing people understanding that they're going to need to invest in improving the conversion of their people in order to make sure that the output is higher, so they can do more with less. And so that's. I'm happy that it happens, but it's a shame that it had to happen the way that it happened.
Right, and I was recently watching a presentation by one of the leading venture capital companies in the United States, and they presented some data around the fact that right now more people in go-to-market are required to do the same output that's like fewer people were able to achieve several years ago. And right now we have so many levers from where we can pull, but still, the data they presented was saying that right now more people need to do that. So how do you think this situation is in Europe when it comes to hiring and the outcomes that those people are bringing right now into the organizations?
It's ironic because I believe that one of the stakeholders that got us where we are today are the venture capital firms. So it's ironic that they are now raising this as a concern. But it isn't different in Europe. I think what is different in Europe compared to the US is that we are more process oriented over here compared to Americans. Americans are more shooting from the hip, more opportunistic. Which has clear benefits because, well, let's face it, the country is doing well, but there's also an advantage to being more process oriented and process driven, and I think really good examples are the Germans. I think the Germans, they are very much process driven. The Swiss are very process driven. The Dutch maybe a little bit less so than the Germans. And that clearly has an advantage because in the times that things get more tough, you have a basis to fall back on and to rely on. And I think that's where Americans are now struggling because it is not in their nature to do more with less, right? It's all about more over there. And I think that's where we have an advantage as Europe.
Right. And how do you see when it comes to the role of the chief revenue officer or the chief customer officer, how do you see this role evolve from, for example, 2020 up to now? We know that a lot of chief revenue officers back in time, like many of them, you say your perspective, maybe any of them right now are still focused a lot on really acquisition. But how do you see their, like, on the one hand, the role has changed, and how do you see the skill set has changed or has evolved for a CRO? Like, what do they need to look out for and really have in their skill set in order to be successful right now and in the future, of course?
Yeah. I think if the trends that we are seeing today are going to continue, then I think what will become a fundamental skill to the role of a CRO is use the processes in the organization that exist, use the people in the organization that are there in order to make them become better, rather than coming in and say, process is wrong, these people are wrong, I want to bring in my own people, tooling is wrong, we're going to pivot to what I'm used to working with, because that is what works, and that's how we're going to grow the business. I think what we've often seen with these CROs is that they're big personalities with a big ego, but they only know one way, and that's their way. And companies can't afford that anymore. They can't afford firing half of their sales force and hiring 20 new sellers. They can't afford bringing in a winning by design and do a 600K go-to-market methodology transformation project. They can't bring in GP Boros to train 40 sellers on a new methodology. There's no funds for this anymore. So what CROs are going to be tasked to do is improve what is already there and build on what is already there. And that's not something that I think these people are going to particularly enjoy hearing from me, but I think that's the reality. As long as the interest rates are where they are, and the investment landscape is where it is, and geopolitical friction is where it is, I don't think anything is going to change soon.
Right. And maybe I can share from the perspective of revenue operations. I still see like the wave is not super strong, but I see this realization among CROs, CROs primarily, around the need to invest in revenue operations. And when I'm saying revenue operations, very often it means, they are understanding that they need to invest in really process. Of course, it's not maybe where we want to be, because still it's not, everybody in the industry, like it's not all CROs that really in-depth understand, for example, what a revenue operations function can bring in terms of being really good in terms of process, understanding really your insights. But I think if we compare Europe and the SaaS industry in Europe several years ago and right now, the awareness around, revenue operations and what revenue operations can bring in order, for a company, for this to result in better efficiency, this is growing as awareness.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not an expert on RevOps, but I'm not surprised, right? If you have unlimited funds to grow an organization, then you're going to focus on acquisition, right? You're not going to focus on things like RevOps. It's aftermath, and I've seen that firsthand. I've worked at organizations where enablement ops it was non-existing, or if it did, then it was an account executive who was 20% of their time focusing on RevOps, right? So yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that, but I think it is a good trend, right? Because it's going to allow us to make the right decisions based on the right data at the right time, and that's something that we haven't been doing in the last decade or so.
Right. Yeah. Or right now, revenue operations is viewed, or we are going towards this vision where really it's viewed as something more holistic, where it's not just about administration of the tools or really putting out some fires, but really working.
You know what, George? I believe that Pavilion says that the average tenure of a go-to-market leader is 18 months.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
But then why would we give somebody that is only with us for 18 months so freaking much responsibilities? Let them change tooling, methodology, people. If they are only there for 18 months, why not either let leadership do that, or a steady factor like RevOps make that kind of decisions, right?
Exactly. That's the mindset I'm speaking a lot about, and I'm very passionate about. And as I see, we are going towards the end of this episode. Maybe one last question for you, as we're talking about trends. Maybe let's talk about the future. How do you imagine the go-to-market function of the business, of the SaaS business, from now on? For example, in several years' time from now, how is it going to be different from right now? And what are the trends that we're going to continue seeing, for example, in 2026, 2027?
Yeah. I think there is going to be an incredible focus on throughput and output. And what do I mean with that? I think continue to build on what we've already shared here. I think it is going to be incredibly important in order for startup scale-ups, in order for them to raise adequate amount of funds in order to grow the organization. I think there is going to come an increased amount of focus on how do you do that? What is your road to profitability looks like? What does your road to sustainability? What does that look like? Durability. And as a result, an increased focus on the quality of the people that we work with, and the tools that we work with, et cetera, et cetera. So I think for the software sellers out there, for the recruiters out there, I think that their job is going to become tougher, right? But if you work based on good processes with the right people, with the right software or the right people, then I do think that you'll be able to flourish and that you have a great future ahead of you. But I do also believe that there will be a lot of consolidation. I think there's too many software vendors out there right now and too many recruitment firms out there, etc. Too many. I was just looking in the Benelux how many event organizers there are now. It's unsustainable. There's too many, and all of these industries are going to have to consolidate, and it will become less players. But I think that's for the better.
Right. I think that's a great ending. So we're going to see more and more efficiency, and we're going to see more and more of the consolidation that we already started seeing. Right.
Yes.
We have many examples right now in the market. Great. Yeah. So thanks so much. Thanks so much, Jeremy, for the thoughts that you shared today. Thanks everybody who watched us as well, and everybody who was with us in those 40 minutes. We are continuing with the next episode of the Revenue Architecture webinar series next week. So stay tuned. We are going to very soon publish the next topic and the next guest in this series. So thanks a lot, everybody, and see you next week. Bye bye.